Hello again. I'm not going to say g'day every time, but I just did it again. G'day. Maybe I should say it every time. Maybe I should just put it up here. G'day, and have it flashing. Hi, I'm back. This is going to be very short. So, our film for week one is titled Flirting, and it came out in Australia in 1991, even though I think our date in the United States, we put it as 1992, but you can figure it's 91, 92. First came out in 91. It's an Australian coming of age comedy drama film written by John Dugan. I think you just say it Dugan, Duigan. But when I say comedy drama, it's really more coming of age drama with moments of comedy. It also has some wonderful music, which I think you're really going to enjoy, and a couple of, or at least one musical sequence that I can think of that I remember watching this film in the theater and just, I thought it was fantastic. And I actually saw this film in 92, and I was taking I was enrolled in an extension course at UCLA, and it was one of those, I think some of you take those, I think a few of you take those at UCLA still, or you did before all of this happened, where they show you some wonderful person, some wonderful scholar selects some films that have not been released to the general public yet, and you get to see them first. I remember one of my students in one of my OSHER courses telling me one year, oh, you have to see Hell or High Water. And it hadn't been released yet, but he had gone to, I think, one of these UCLA things and seen it and told me to watch it, and I did. And by the way, Hell or High Water is a terrific film. So if you haven't seen that one, there's something else to add to your quarantine movie list. Anyway, I first saw this film at that kind of, I saw it in a class at UCLA at a huge theater, of course, and it was just fantastic. And I wish that we could watch all of our films on the big screen. That is the one thing that I'm bummed about, as well as the fact that you have to pay for some of these, because all of these I own and I have them all either, streaming or DVD. And that was the cool thing about doing it in person. I just bring my material. So I really appreciate you coming to the class and agreeing to pay some fees that you'll have to pay. I would love to put together more series, but I have to be honest with you, looking at the films I want to show, you'd have to pay for every film, and that's would run you about $25. So I don't think you want to pay $50 for this class. I wouldn't want you to do that. But I'm going to keep looking for free things. There's certainly nothing good on Netflix, but maybe I can find something in the future. So anyway, thank you for coming, and hopefully this works out okay for us. I forgot to mention in the intro video, I'm going to put all of these up. I'm going to try to get these up by Friday morning before the class. So you'll have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I guess Monday morning, you'll have that amount of time to watch it. I'm going to try to film them on Wednesdays. If I can get them all done earlier, I certainly will. But definitely, you can start checking the playlist around Thursdays or Fridays and see what I've put up if you want to watch the intros before you watch the films, which I think you should. But you do you. I'm not gonna give you demerits. So anyway, back to Flirting. Boy, can you tell I don't talk to too many people these days? Yada, yada, yada. I just talk and talk and talk. Flirting, 1991, directed by John Dugan. It's a story that revolves around the romance between two teenagers from very different worlds, one of them played by Noah Taylor, who actually appeared in another John Dugan film that came out prior to Flirting, titled The Year My Voice Broke, and that was in 1987. And actually, Flirting is part two of this young man's sort of life adventures. So, The Year My Voice Broke in 1987 begins the story of this young man, and then this is part two when he goes away to boarding school. and this was put out in 1991. It's an incomplete trilogy, though, I must tell you. There was supposed to be a third film, and I don't know anything about it, what it was supposed to be, but it had been intended to do another one, and they never made it. Okay, and it wasn't because the other two films weren't successful. In fact, both The Year My Voice Broke and Flirting were huge critical successes and commercial successes and won many awards. Both films won many awards, so they're great. We just don't know why there isn't a third, but that's okay. You don't even have to go see the first. You don't even have to go back and watch The Year My Voice Broke if you don't want to. This film stands on its own. You don't need to see both of them at all, but you can. So Noah Taylor is Danny, our star in this film. You will also see a young Nicole Kidman, who I mentioned in our intro. This was also one of her final films. I think she did this film, and then she made Dead Calm, and then she left Australia to marry Tom Cruise and star in a really bad race car movie. But, you know, Tom Cruise had to make that film because he was in love with Paul Newman, and he wanted to work with him, and so they did it. Wasn't that the film? Or was that The Color of Money? I don't know. I don't follow Tom Cruise's career. I don't know anything about Tom Cruise. It was something like that. Anyway, I think it was that he loved car racing because of Paul Newman, so he had to make this movie. I think that's what it is. Okay, you can correct me or don't. I don't care. Anyway, but really, the standout, the breakout star of this film is Thandie Newton, who at the time, you know, this was her first film. She was 16 years old, and now everyone knows who Thandie Newton is because of her wonderful role on HBO's series, The Westworld, not The Westworld, Westworld, which was, of course, based on, is it Michael Crichton book and the earlier Westworld film with James Brolin from like 1973 or something. So you know Westworld. I tried to watch Westworld, the series. I watched the first part of the first series, and it was just honestly so rapey, I could not even do it. And during quarantine, I decided I would go back and just watch it all and give it a shot. And it turns out really well. So I like it now. I'm still not thrilled with all the rapey, but you know, it gets better, put it that way. And most importantly, Thandie Newton is incredible, and she's been nominated for every kind of award for her performance in that series. You also probably maybe remember her from the 2005 Best Picture winner, the film Crash, which was also harrowing series of vignettes of troubled people all strung together and kind of interacting. I liked Crash, but it is sort of famously believed that Crash was not the film that should have won that year. And anyone who thinks of themselves as a cinephile or critic or film scholar pretty much adheres to that opinion. I liked it. I thought it was good. I don't know if it still stands the test of time, but it was good. Another person you might notice, or might not, but now you will because I'm telling you, is a very young Naomi Watts. This was one of her first films. I think she might have appeared in a couple of things prior to this, but anyway, she plays one of the schoolgirl friends of Thandie Newton, and Naomi Watts, you would know, became very famous in David Lynch's 2001 film Mulholland Drive, as well as The Ring and lots of other things, and she's in that really controversial film I mentioned, Adore. So you can always do more Naomi Watts if you want to. What else? Let me see. Flirting, as I said, won awards. It won the 1990 Australian Film Institute Award for Best Film. So, the dates are weird on this. So if it won the 1990 award, I just looked at my notes, then that means that it was made prior to that. It doesn't matter. Anywhere between 1989 and 1992, but let's say 1989. And let's see, I've told you all this other stuff. So things to look out for besides movie stars. Not only is this film beautifully shot, it has some very interesting themes, and even though it does evoke these universal themes of sort of first love and romance and whatnot. It also really examines the properties of the Australian character. Like, what is an Australian person? What is the culture like? What are you brought up in? Now, the film is set in the 1960s, so it wouldn't be a contemporary look at these themes. But these ideas run through the decades of Australia, and they're things like existential isolation and the strong cultural ties to Great Britain, right? So there's a lot of that in there. Most interestingly for me, and I don't remember anybody really talking about this very much when I saw the film or even since, but the thing that just jumped out at me was how this film deals in such an interesting way and really directly with racism. And it's not that kind of activist racism like, oh, you're a racist or this is, it really just shows you how it's so ingrained, these beliefs about, especially about people from Africa. So we're in Australia, so we're not talking about the United States racism with the history that we have of enslaved Africans in the South and all of our civil rights thing. This is Australian right culture racism and it's not native because that would be more about the Aboriginal people in Australia. So what it deals with is this kind of world map, this global idea, and how Australians dealt with this influx of foreigners because everybody in Australia is a foreigner except for Aboriginal peoples. So anyway, this character that Tandy Newton plays, and her character's name is Tandaway. Her parents are African diplomats, and in the 60s, as most all the time, Africa has been in turmoil with revolutions and changes in governments and imperialism and colonizers and whatnot. So this is a very interesting backstory and backdrop to Tandaway's experience, and it's something that her eventual boyfriend Danny, has to process from his very isolated white Australian frame of mind. And of course, he's much more curious and interesting, a much more curious and interesting person than his peers, which is why he's sort of the outcast, because he does think and he does care. He's not just going along with whatever is in and whatever is appropriate. He's not interested in that at all, and neither is she. So they both have these similar mindsets, and they're coming from these two different worlds, and they're clashing, and they really find this connection with each other in that way. And that, to me, is the most beautiful thing about the film. And I think that that's probably what most people get from it, even if they don't verbalize it, even if they don't, dissect it to that level. So that's what I love about it. I think it's a very interesting look at that kind of cultural clash in Australia, and which is something that in the United States we don't see a lot of, where we're more focused on our own cultural clashes. I think that's it. As I mentioned, Flirting was widely and critically acclaimed, and with critics mostly really taken by Tandy Newton. And the film itself was featured on Robert Ebert's top 10 best films list of 1992. Later on, it was ranked as number 46 on Entertainment Weekly's list of the 50 best high school movies. Please don't let that turn you off. This is not High School Musical, and it is unlike any high school film you've probably ever seen. So forget about that. I probably shouldn't even have told you. Anyway, that's it. I'm not going to talk anymore. Please enjoy Tandy Newton, Noah Taylor, and Nicole Kidman in John Dugan's 1991 film, Flirting.